Warning: this show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewers' discretion is advised. This show may contain strong language and sensitive or controversial topics. We are not attorneys and are not providing legal advice. The views and conversations are our own thoughts and feelings, and therefore, purely speculation.
The entertainment world and beyond.
Skywalker air miles, feeding on the surface, gliding on water, constricted and conflicted.
Welcome to Purely Speculation, a show that exposes the harmful effects of the criminal legal system. I'm your host, Heather Lewis, the Executive Director of the Reuniting Family Bail Fund and practitioner of participatory defense. On this show, you'll learn about the unspoken horrors of the criminal justice system and meet fierce allies and advocates. We will make the best of our traumatic experiences. We will get angry. We may even cry. We most certainly going to laugh, but one thing's for sure, we're going to keep it real. Welcome to Purely Speculation.
When they free my sins and let them loose, they was killing me, I got scars to prove, got me paralyzed, I could even barely move. Out the way I took the pain again.
Hey, y'all. Welcome. Season 2, episode 9. Killing it, running through it. This is an episode of our Cannabis Chronicles, and we want to just highlight the phenomenal and astronomical and historic action by Governor Wes Moore on June 17, 2024, where he issued an executive clemency order pardoning certain Maryland convictions related to the simple possession of cannabis. This historic action pardoned 175,000 convictions related to cannabis and cannabis-related misdemeanors and things of that nature. So we are just here to dive in deeper as Pennsylvania moves closer and closer to the legalization of recreational cannabis in Pennsylvania. And so I'd like to welcome you, our special guest, Geoff Smith, the executive director of MontcoNORML. It is an organization that is helping folks advocating for the legalization of cannabis, but also working with families and individuals who are wanting to get their cannabis charges pardoned. Welcome, Geoff. Thank you so much. I know you've had a busy schedule. There's a lot of things going on surrounding the legalization and legislation that's happening. So I thank you for taking time out of your day to sit with us this evening.
Yes, thank you for inviting me on your show. I appreciate being here.
Absolutely. Is there anything in the intro that I missed or that you want to elaborate on about your organization before we get into the origin story? Because I know just like our organization, we do 1,001 things, not just what's like kind of in our title. So if there's anything that I missed or anything that you want to highlight, please let me know.
Yeah, NORML is the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Law. MontcoNORML has been around since 2018, and we've been serving Montgomery County and Philadelphia area ever since through community outreach programs and pop-up outreach events and connecting with the community and all types of music and art events and all types of art events that we've had, and we've just gone throughout the city of Philadelphia and reached out to the community in need there also through many programs that we've worked through and partnered with other organizations. And we've just been working to try and end the victimization of cannabis in Pennsylvania and Montgomery County. Our organization works a lot with the renewal of community and helping people get back on track, however that looks. Like a lot of people call us, in the middle of their legal struggle, or they find out that there's resources that we offer that can connect them with free pardons and helping them get their community service hours met and helping them just get reconnected with the community and move on from the traumatic events that happen to them for simply using a plant in however way. And a lot of these people are just simple average community members that were affected by having this in their car or being at the wrong place at the wrong time or being connected to like going to events, or like there's just a lot of people that get in trouble for cannabis, and they're just impatient, or there's someone that's trying to sell their Jersey tomatoes, like, and there's just a lot of like mismanagement of like services of like the government that shouldn't be targeting people for just trying to get ahead in life or manage their pain. Like there's this huge like war on drugs that's like a misinformation act that targeted people for filling a quota of money, and disrupting communities of color and communities of diversity. And it was all a smear campaign, and it's still being felt in 2024, and people are still affected by it and put in jail and losing their license and losing their job, and at risk of like losing like everything just for a plan. And
Right.
it's ridiculous when I'm right here in New Jersey, and like there was an event that we just went to called the Nikon conference, and it was a corporate like industry event, and there's banks there and security companies and like anything you need to like make your cannabis companies. And along here on Pacific Avenue and Atlantic Avenue, they have something called the Green Zone. Even in this hotel, there's a dispensary right located in the front lobby, and it's just like this is New Jersey, like
Right.
all the surrounding states in Pennsylvania. There's a legalization of some kind, an adult use of some kind, and it's making the residents of Pennsylvania go elsewhere, and it's making people in the industry go elsewhere that are Pennsylvania residents and Pennsylvania businesses, and it's making it so like there's a what do we call it, a problem with Pennsylvania getting ahead when all the surrounding area there's a legalization of cannabis, and people are going elsewhere to get products. People are going elsewhere to become a business owner. People are getting into the industry, but not in Pennsylvania. So what does that look like? That looks like that the tax dollars, there's millions, billions of tax dollars that are being lost yearly, on a revenue schedule for cannabis, and then with all the millions of jobs, there's jobs that are being lost. And then there's all the consumers, people are going to other places to go buy all these products, plants, whatever. And then the problem is, if they're a Pennsylvania resident, they're returning with all these things that they bought legally, and it becomes a huge problem because it's illegal in this state. You know,
Right.
so even if you're a medical patient and you bought this outside of a recreational or a medical dispensary in New Jersey, you could get in trouble for it. And it poses a big problem when there's still no legislation that's enacted for adult use cannabis in Pennsylvania. And people are coming to the green zone here along Pacific and Atlantic Avenue, coming into this. There's a cannabis dispensary in this hotel, and the residents are and the tax dollars are leaving, and it's insane, and that I have many and continue to have many of these the legislation meetings. I call them cannabis meetings with a lot of the state reps and state senators, and I tell them like these same things, like there is literally a green border around the state, and like we're losing revenue, we're losing jobs, we're losing the green economy. That's when it does happen. If it does happen here, it's going to be, like deflated, and, it's came and gone, and right now, people don't believe me, but go into your local, gas station or smoke shop, and I
Right.
bet you'll find jars of cannabis. They'll say it's THCA or hemp, but I I beg to differ if they have repeat customers.
Right.
So it's already an illicit market in gas stations and these stores, and where's the regulation in this? Where's all these things coming from? Like, I was at a festival not too long ago, and there's this guy, in the way he looked at it, it was like a marketing thing. He had like a whole line of these products, that he could like sell to people, and he gets a deal on it or whatever. But when you flip the packaging around, it says origin made in the United States. Isn't that the weirdest thing you heard? Like,
Mm.
say, like made in California or made, in Colorado, origin made in the United States. And then you look at it more, and then there's like less and less details about things that should be there. So it's like, what is this,
Right.
concoction of snake juice, that's probably made in China or somewhere? And it's like, I wouldn't drink this, and it's like, this is what's around, because there's an unregulated market, and this is what's accessible to people, because you can buy these things on Alibaba and eBay and
Right.
even Amazon, like, and like people are selling it and trying to say it's under the Hemp Act, and calling it a THCA and Delta 8, and in the end you don't know what it is, and it's unregulated, and it's could be scary. And it's like a lot of the cases you hear, like, or a majority of them are these products. They're not like the regulated dispensary products. Now in Pennsylvania there's no real edibles here, or in that market, besides, like, they call them troches, or these little mints. But there's
Hmm.
chocolates. There's not like any of that, and those troches and mints come in like medical. They look like medical packages. It looks like,
Right.
pill bottles. So like
So,
there's still no medical market yet in that.
right. So let me pause you, because I mean we can talk for days, because I told you, now I got questions because I want to know more about it. But also too, to that effect, and then I want to go kind of back to you, is those products are getting into the hands of our young people. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Because there's no regulation. You don't. I mean, the dispensaries are so highly regulated and restricted. Like, I can't even. I don't have a card. I can't go into a dispensary with somebody that has a card to even browse or look around or just be in it. Like, you cannot. Literally, only the person that has the medical card is allowed in the dispensary. But you're talking about gas stations that could potentially be THC products, could be synthetic products or whatever, that is no more regulated than tobacco. And we know how easily tobacco gets into the hands of our young people. But before we talk about that, I want to know, like, how did you land here? What's the origin? What happened? Was Geoff this kid in high school that was just toting and growing and tinkering and coming up with these amazing strains? Or like, how did Geoff end up with MontcoNORML and advocating for the cannabis industry?
well, I didn't get into cannabis until I was an adult. Actually, I was 23 years old. I was introduced with my two friends. One was um, starting to be diagnosed for cancer, and my other
Oh,
friend,
wow.
cannabis user. They both were cannabis users, and I had like undiagnosed, like, stress issues turned into PTSD because I, didn't had a lot going on, and cannabis like helped me, and I only used it medicinally. I didn't ever really like have street experience, trying to
Right.
get it. Because when I was in Massachusetts, and Massachusetts already became medical, and they were becoming recreationalized, and at that time state police didn't even care about weed, so like it was past the point, where anybody cared, and it was medicine up there, and like I really needed like something, and I didn't really want to start getting into pharmaceutical drugs with that type of stuff. So I started,
Right.
my friends got their stuff from the dispensary, and one of my friend Joyce, I became her caregiver when because she became a cancer patient. She then soon in that summer passed away from throat cancer.
Mm,
And
I'm
just
sorry for that.
think, but I still, when I returned back to Pennsylvania, I became one of the first registered patients in the state in the medical program here. I was the sixth registered patient in Pennsylvania, and there was no medicine at the time. There was no dispensary. There wasn't even cards. There was a thick piece of paper called the Harbor Act, which was a joke. You still got in trouble for being a patient and like having cannabis. And I still could go to Massachusetts still and get cannabis from the dispensary, like as I did, and that's what I did until like the dispensaries in Pennsylvania got their act together and got online. But
Right.
in the meantime, I was getting in trouble. I got a charge for having a half ounce of weed, and you're not allowed to have this. It's like, yeah, I am. I'm a patient.
Right.
You know, they didn't want to have anything to hear about this, and I had to go to court about it, and that's where this whole, crucifixion began. And then because they knew who I was, they started targeting me. You know,
Mm.
Montgomery County is not a very big place, and the police are very bored out here in the suburbs, so they were targeting me. They would pull me over, pretend like they have like a coke problem's a problem, and like sniffing like there's no tomorrow, and like,
Right.
what do you want me to do? Make noted that you have a sinus issue, sir, so you can then say your car's going to leave, like, and then they would give you tickets, and harass you more. And then I went through. They don't really have these anymore, but the DUI checkpoints. I went through a DUI checkpoint, which really looked like a construction zone. And like I rolled my window down, and I didn't have anything to hide, like I don't have anything listed in my car, like I'm not impaired. And they're,
Right.
hi, how much have you drank today? And I'm like, I don't drink alcohol. And they're like, I'm like, I don't drink. And then he reached into my car and then took my keys, and he's like, you're not going anywhere. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then he's like, come out of the car. And then it became Simon Says. And I actually do have some gait issues. I have handicap placards. So like me walking is like not exactly straight. And I
Right.
told him that, and they didn't really care. And this was before I had a service dog. So it's like, it wasn't like completely apparent. But so then they wanted me to do another test where they like put the light in my eyes, and they had like, now if cop flashlights are quite bright, and if you have such
Mm-hmm.
shining directly in your face, it engaged a seizure, and I have a seizure disorder. So the cops gave me
It caused you to have a seizure right there on the spot.
they gave me a seizure, and I like told them, like, pretty much like fell over, and then they're trying to get me to sign some piece of paper, and I was like, I need medical assistance right now. It's like, you're kidnapping me, like you have no articulable reasonable suspicion. It's like, why are we here right now? It's like, why am I not in my car? And he's like, you need to sign this piece of paper and then you can leave. And I refused to sign this piece of paper, and then they were like it was like 30 minutes into this or 40 minutes into this, they're like, all right, you can sign this and you can leave. So I signed this, and then they put me in the back of the ambulance, and they put me all down onto the gurney, and then they try and take my blood, and I'm
Right.
wigging out. They rusted all my blood vessels in my arm. They didn't even give me a medical attention. They put me in handcuffs and then had me sit on the side of the road for 3 hours, and it was Hatfield off of what is it? Begins with a C, the road. It's like a main cowpath road. I was sitting
Mm-hmm.
for hours, and the police were sitting there like taunting me, making fun of me. I never got a phone call. Like
That's
they
wild.
put me in the back of the cop car. This is the same cop that like took my keys and everything. And I told him, what is your articulable reason of suspicion? It's like, you don't have anything on him. He's like, oh, we will when we take your blood. It's like, so you kidnap me, so then you take my
Right.
blood to prove a point, because I'm a medical patient. So because I'm a medical patient, there must be something in my blood.
Mm-hmm.
That was their whole MO, which is completely unconstitutional. And so they took me to jail. They put me in a lockup tank. Now, I was on medications for mental health things, and they really did not interact well with being in the induced, like, in climate like that, being locked up. So I think I was in there for 24 hours, and no one said hi to me, nobody gave me water, no one checked on me. And then they like let me out. Well, no, the shift changed or whatever. So like
Right.
this, whatever sticky note they had like disappeared for the next shift. So then they're like, "Oh, who are you? What are you? Where are you?"
Where'd you come from?
So they had like their little blow gun for alcohol. I was like,
Right.
"Oh, that's the first time I've seen that." And they're like, "What?" And then they had another Hatfield police officer come and pick me up and tell me I'm being charged with a DUI, and they dropped me like a mile up the road from where I live, and I had to walk home. They still had my car. They stole my car, and so it was on. So this happened all on Friday. So on Monday, I went to go get my car, and when I went there, he's the cop who stole my keys, who took me took me to jail. He's wanted to talk to me. So I'm in an interrogation room. So now there's a file in front of them, in front of us, and it's my psych report from NHS on Broad Street, now known as Marikey.
Uh-huh.
He illegally took my psych report from that place and tried to use it against me in an interrogation room, asking me about my dead best friend, which I called my brother, the person that helped me start using cannabis. And
Uh-huh.
the official user, his name was Sam. He was murdered walking home to our apartment, and he tried to use that in an interrogation room to get me to flip.
The heck? And this is all for
Yep,
a
Hatfield.
silver checkpoint.
Yep, this is all for a DUI. This his name was Sergeant
My
Starter. He committed suicide during the process of the court, because I committed I filed a HIPAA violation against him,
yes.
which which was covered up by Marikey, formerly known as NHS.
Right. Because they
And
know they were wrong too.
correct. So they covered up the HIPAA violation, and within the time of court, the the cop committed suicide. And a year and a half after the year and a half after he committed suicide, the trial was still going on, and I was like, fighting for my life here because they're
Mhm.
trying to put me in jail, and I'm just taking my medicine. And in
Right.
all respects, all I had was 12 nanograms of THC. Me and my doctor jokingly talk about how, Jeff, your blood's at 270 parts per million. Wouldn't know you're impaired a day in my life. And they were trying to put me in jail. This cop committed suicide. A lot of people got fired in the public defender's office and the DA's office in Montgomery County, thanks to our light just went out.
Right. That's
Um,
okay.
it was a battery box. Um, Senator Daniel Leach got rid of the name was Dean Beard. He was the chief director of the
Mhm.
defender's office. He was fired because of this case. Because I had to go through court a year and a half after the death of this cop, and they were wearing orange suicide ribbons every time we went to court on Thursday. And if my public defender did her job, her name was Emily Sieber,
Uh-huh.
any of this wouldn't have happened, and this cop would still probably be alive, probably be in jail, and wouldn't be police anymore, but he'd still be alive,
Right.
have some mental health, help. But all this occurred a year, and the way I got, say I wanted out of this was I said I wanted, I want to go to court because the public defenders knew what was going on, refused to go to court. Your attorney would refuse to do what you want to do as your client, and that happens all the time in the
Right.
Montgomery
It absolutely does.
court
It
system.
absolutely does.
You know, so people are taking plea deals and all these other deals, not knowing that they're screwing themselves in the end because their lawyer is best friends with the prosecutor.
Yeah, sure.
And, you know, you didn't do anything wrong. Like, I had 12 nanograms in my system, you know, and already you gave me a seizure. You legally took my blood. You committed a HIPAA violation. You used that in an interrogation room. You're charging me for a crime. You legally searched my car to find the little cartridge that they have at the dispensary from Massachusetts. The 510 thread, you know, they have here that screw onto your box mod. They had like one of those empty, because the judge, they changed the judge. They did everything, and I think the judge was on to this. He's still a judge there. He's actually a good judge. He's an African American man in the Montgomery County Court.
Judge Creech?
I believe that's him.
Yeah, he is a good judge.
He hired an outside attorney for me. His name was what was his name? I'll come back to. I remember his name.
Okay.
Easy name.
I never would have facts thought that. Never in a million years would I have thought that that level of police brutality would have led you here. Like that is just an insane story. Like, that's my what the fuck moment, because I would never have expected that. I would never have expected, and I'm gonna be frank, for a white dude in Hatfield, for the police to behave that way with you, threaten. I mean, put you in a medical crisis. Like, all of this for a little bit of weed. Like, I mean, it's just
that they didn't have that. They just
right.
had my stolen blood work, which showed 12 nanograms of
Right. Wow. That's wild. That is definitely wild. Never, ever would have expected that. So are all your legal battles complete? You've done? Have you been exonerated? Found not guilty? Like,
the case was dismissed, but it put a mark on me. You know,
for sure.
The public, the prosecutor's office, you know, and the tyrannical police departments of Montgomery County, you know, who continue to harass, you know, and bother, you know, because, you know, we're educated about, you know, their corruption.
Right. Yeah. And you know, it's that I'm still just dumbfounded at that. And so I'm glad, I'm fortunate that happened to you. I'm glad that it's over. I'm glad that you are now taking that experience and using it to help others, and really trying to eliminate that type of trauma. Like, it's just, and that happens daily. And so where does that leave us legally? I know, Zach, we talked about putting it up later, but I want to talk about, because this, I think, is the appropriate time, about the decriminalizing cannabis now. Like that, there's 66, I don't know, it goes between 63 and 66 municipalities, townships, and boroughs in Montgomery County, right? Do you have the exact number now, since you're actively doing this work?
That's about right. 60,
right.
63.
And so my research has produced 5 communities that have decriminalized cannabis. I can't name them all, but I know it's Norristown, North Wales. That's all I know off the top of my head.
East Norton, King of
West
Prussia.
East Norton and King of Prussia.
Yeah.
Right. So all kind of, you know what I mean, down around Norristown, Pottstown, which is a predominantly marginalized community, hasn't done it. Willow Grove, another community that has a lot of Black and brown people. Cheltenham, right on the border of Philadelphia, a lot of Black and brown people. They have not. So 5 out of 60 have decriminalized cannabis. And that means that, you know, if you're caught with a, you know, small amount of personal use, you get a citation. It's like a traffic ticket, where other communities like Hatfield will send you to jail. And so you had mentioned earlier that you have some people that call you kind of in the process of their criminal case. And so anybody that we can support as they go navigate their case, we would love to, hop in and help out, and whatever we can help do to help them navigate that case and get the best outcome for that. We would absolutely love it. And that's just how we partner in this space, to keep each other safe, to minimize that trauma. And who was going with you to these court dates? Like, who did you have outside of maybe your friend or a family member, but you didn't have a whole organization that's committed to this work, standing beside you in that courtroom, like, just, holding you up while you're having to fight, this asinine, horrific, illegal traffic stop.
Yeah, and it happens every day and continues
Every day.
And there's like this little task force the state police have for going along avenues between little metropolitan districts, between like Pottstown and Norristown, between
Right.
like Philadelphia and like the surrounding suburbs, where they try and
More and more.
over and say their car smells like weed, where you can't even get a search warrant anymore. Supreme Court ruled that you can't. The odor of cannabis no longer consents for a search warrant, and they're still using that tactic on people. And when they do, they either get, "Oh, I'm a medical patient," thinking that they're like saving themselves, when they're actually exposing themselves, because now they'll be like, "Oh, well, now we're going to take your blood illegally," and they do, or they illegally search your car and find some type of paraphernalia. Paraphernalia can be anything. It could be a lighter. It could be a baggie.
Isn't that crazy?
It could be anything. It could be the little bowl thing you use. What they think you use as a bowl. Like anything, a wrapper. Like,
right.
It's ridiculous. And they do get people on these fake trumped up charges to fit the quota, and it's young people, it's people that don't have the money to fight this. It's people of different communities, and that they get impacted by this, and they can't flip the bill and pay for a lawyer. They don't have the knowledge to know that there are some resources out there that can assist. They're going with the public defenders that are in bed with the district attorney, and saying, "Here, you got to take this deal. This is all I can do to help you." And that's not helping them at all. It's screwing them. And then they take a deal. They're now on probation. This fake system here of making money and getting people in trouble, and it creates this world of problem. And then they're getting in trouble on their probation things, because they're getting so harassed by the police. Maybe their probation is intolerance of the medical program, which has been seen here in Pennsylvania, not so much in Montgomery County, but it makes problems for people who are just simply trying to take their medicine, where the state is trying to victimize people still for taking their medicine. And a lot of times it is medical patients. It's just not recreational users. Medical patients are saying, "Well, oh, I'm a medical patient." Shows them their card, and they're like, "Great. Now,
good for you." So I have a question for you. What does, and I don't know if your work intersects or has any support from the cannabis industry, but my thinking was that, because when we work with folks, especially folks that are coming home from incarceration, that we encourage them to get their medical marijuana card, because like you said, at least that piece, POs are somewhat more understanding and acknowledging that this can, and folks use it as medicine for all types of things. And so we encourage folks to come, when they come home from incarceration, to get their medical marijuana card, so that is not a potential risk for them as a violation if they have to give a urine and cannabis THC is found. Have you had, what's the cannabis industry's take on how their clients, their consumers, their patients are being victimized and vilified and criminalized for using their product?
Well, back in the day when this was all, it might be a bad example, but it's my example because that was my doctor. name was Matthew Roman, and he had a practice called Natural Way Medicine. It was on 4th Street down in Philadelphia. The practice is still there, but he's no longer a practicing doctor there. But he helped me get my card and knew about all of the issues that came along with it. And he wrote letters and, supporting documents, and took time out of his schedule, trying to help me when, I'm a patient and the system's victimizing me here for taking
Right.
my, and like, it's just ridiculous that, people are being, you have a medical marijuana card and you're in a car right now. Well, now you have a fake DUI, like, that's wrong,
Yeah.
and there's reasonable suspicion there. That's assumption, that's not, like, and that's a really broad assumption, and like, you're violating my blood vessels and my rights, you know
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
your tax quota. And DUI really screws people because it messes with your employment, you know
Absolutely.
unemployment, because DUI in Pennsylvania is a criminal thing, and it can be jail time, and like, it can make you lose your license all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
my case, because it was dismissed, I didn't lose my license, but after my time is spent in jail for my 12 milliliters, that I would have lost my license for more than a year.
Sure.
So that's my independence, that's my way to get to work, that's my way to get to the doctor, that's my,
Mm-hmm.
go to the dispensary. And oh well, like, you lose your right to have a license. And like, it's like so troubling that like they still haven't created a past legislation for some type of DUI protection. There are some
Right.
drafts created, but there's nothing that's been signed, enacted into law for some type of medical protection for DUI.
So let's talk about that a little more, like the legislation. So you may know Free My Weed Man, my girl Crystal Bush. She was on a few months ago, and where we were in time, they were pushing, or Governor Shapiro was pushing to have, I think, recreational legislation passed like sometime in July. And
Yeah.
so here we are in September, and we still don't have that legislation. Now we know, the phenomenal things that have happened with the election and everything that's going on. So some speculate that, oh, well, he shifted gears, because he was a potential running mate. And so, a lot of things got pushed to the back burner. And we don't have to, specifically that particular thing, but where are we legislatively? What strides have we made? Obviously, there's still strides that need to be made, obviously covering the DUI situation, past convictions for folks that have cannabis convictions, and how it progressed, and moving forward, and how do we address the disparate impact on people of color and marginalized communities. Like, give us an update on where the legislation is. I see you going to Harrisburg a lot. I see Crystal going to Harrisburg a lot and doing, a lot of rallying and educational speaking, and just bringing awareness. So can you give us an up-to-date, maybe synopsis of some of the legislation, good, bad, and different, where we need to put pressure on the legislation or the legislators, and how we can get good cannabis legislation retroactively and moving forward for cannabis users?
Yeah, so majority of my efforts have been physically meeting with the legislator and talking with them. So we've met with over 20 so far, and we have a long more to meet with. And we've just been having these, like, informal, just sit down meetings, saying, you know, here's what the problem is on my end, as I continue to express, and like, this is where we're missing out. And we talk about, like, common sense legislation, and restorative justice, and talking about like uh, the liquor store model, um,
Mm-hmm.
which in reality does not work. Like, if you know about the liquor stores, like, it's a very closed network. So like, reality, that would be a very closer network for the cannabis community in that. And it's like a reality, these two things are just two separate things, you know. So like in the current meetings that I've had with a lot of the state reps and state senators, the current legislation that's out there is not what is going to be agreed upon to move forward. Uh, the same talks have been talked with the same thing. Like people are talking about it in this new bill, which I agree. I think a comprehensive bill that, you know, talks about all angles of this, you know, like talks about the restorative justice, talks about micro licenses, talks about home grow, talks about you know, DUI protection, talks about home grow cultivation, talks about the banking, talks about restorative justice, where people are pardoned, people are let out of jail, you know, they have the first bid to get a micro license. This war on drugs ends, you know, there's just a cease, you know, so there's no more criminal, you know, like there will always be, you know, when people talk about legalization, they think about, oh, it's going to be legalized, you know, that's the end of it. No, that's not the end of it. That's just the beginning of it. You know,
Right.
like you know, in all other states, you know, weed is not completely legal. You know, there is all caps to all of this. You
Right.
certain states you only can grow 3 plants, in certain states you only grow 6. You know, tomorrow it becomes legalized. Don't expect to be able to, you know, go out to the field and, you know, start growing, you know, your heart's delight. Oh, I didn't know that I can do that.
Ooh, wow, look at you. I like that. Where'd that come from?
I
What was
don't
the
know.
magic word?
Fingers up. That might be why. I'm not sure what happened. I don't know. That was really interesting. You know,
That was cool.
but like for what currently is there in bills, greatly support the street bill, but it hasn't really made any traction in the multiple years that it's been around, and it's been, you know, changed in bill number and changed in language, and it's just not gaining traction, you know. And some legislators are even opposed to it, you know, like because they want, you know, their state model liquor store thing to be a thing, you know, like, and
Mhm.
there's just other people that are like claiming ignorance, and, you know, maybe they're claiming ignorance because they don't, you know, want to know, but, you know, but
Right.
like really, like if data shows like a majority of medical patients are in a regional part of Pennsylvania and like not in a metropolitan area, you know. So if that means it's in a regional part of Pennsylvania, that means there's a lot of people that have constituents that use cannabis, you know,
Mhm.
because they don't wear a pot shirt like me, you know,
Right.
doesn't mean they're not, you know, maybe in their closet, you know, smoking.
Mhm.
But like a lot of wet legislators in Western Pennsylvania, and I don't even want to say Republican, but sometimes to say Republican, you know,
Mhm.
believe that their demographic and their constituents don't want this, but really that they do. You know, like grandma smoking weed, like,
She
you know,
got glaucoma.
you know, like that's why we're really trying to push these meetings that we're having, you know, to try and, you know, show them this data, you know, have this, you know, common sense conversation, you know, like that we are missing this green economy, you know, like we are missing out on lots and lots and lots of money, you know, on
Right.
top of, you know, businesses, you know, PA businesses. You know, there is a famous $10 bill that was made in roughly 1910 that on the back of it was a hemp farm in York, Pennsylvania. And
Mm.
a series of bills that were distributed through America because people really weren't able to afford to travel. So the United States government put out this series of bills that were $10 bills that showed all pretty parts of America. And
Okay.
Pennsylvania, they decided to show York hemp's field, you know, the hemp field in York, Pennsylvania. and like that should be an industry again. And this
Right.
whole miscommunication on it is now medicine, like this whole thing with rescheduling is going to happen in a period of time,
Mhm.
that could take up to 2 years. This review process is the court date is for the 2nd of the December, and after all the hearing and stuff, the judge will take up to maybe 2 months to review this, and then by his findings, common sense, by the standards of scheduling, like it
Right.
belongs to be there, and it belongs to be in another thing. Now, how that looks when it's introduced and actually put into effect, that could take, you know, however long the government wants to take with dragging their feet to do that, and
Sure.
they'll probably drag their feet, with doing it. But like Normal back in the 80s, had this whole type of review process too, and showed data and took it to the Supreme Court, and it was ruled 3 years later that it should be rescheduled. But at the time in the 1980s, the DEA never responded, and I believe still hasn't responded to this findings that was made, was 40, almost 40 years ago.
Right.
So like, and then the whole rescheduling thing like makes it so, that puts a prerogative that it's not legalization. Rescheduling is only really for the corporate end of it. Like
Right.
there's really no gain and benefit for the average American or user or entrepreneur. So that's
Okay.
allowing big pharma to get ahead in this
In the
industry.
industry. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So when the legalization, because legalization and descheduling and uh, legalization are two different things. So with rescheduling, like, is more popular right now than than decriminalizing. But throughout this, you might find that popularity might come to legalization by the end of this, but through this rescheduling, you're not going to automatically get legalization. And like I said,
Right.
anything at all to change for you. Like it's only going to be an industry thing. You know,
Right.
so now what it may do on a legislative end is put stoke of fire underneath all these legislators to be like, okay, well now I can't say that I have to wait for the government to do it because this was the government's action. Like because a lot of this is another diversion tactic that some of our state legislators like to use. They like to say that, oh well, federal legalization. It's always somebody else can do this. I don't want my name on
Mhm.
it. Want to get involved, or who my donors are don't want me to get involved, or what
Right.
have you. But the conversation needs to start happening because it's gotten to the point where activism is now popular.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
popular. So like
Mhm.
at the point that activism is now popular, I think that legislators need to open their ears and be like, okay, this is a huge industry that we're missing out on, and
Yeah.
literally everyone, including West Virginia, is getting on board, and we're still sitting here twiddling our fingers, making up excuses.
Right. Right. So tell me, so I mean, that's a lot that we have to wait for. So Normal is helping folks with pardons. So they don't have to wait for the legalization of it. They maybe have been able to get their medical card, but the pardon process, talk to us about the pardon process and how and who and how at least folks can get relief on the back end, after they've been traumatized by this whole process, that at least maybe a pardon is in the future, and that it will open up some doors that were previously closed to them because of the cannabis charge.
Yeah, so over, I think it was 3,000 individuals now have entered the program, and I
Okay.
believe over where over 1,000 now have been officially pardoned, and everyone that's enters to be pardoned isn't dismissed. It's just you're put on a list depending on what the way it is, because what they're looking for is
Right.
certain field candidates so far with this round of this. And what it is, it's an 18-page form that you fill out, and you include, your previous docket information and a picture, and you submit it to Harrisburg to the pardons office, and they get back to you in a few months with they're working on this. And through this template that is still kind of a mystery to everyone, what it pretty much is you shouldn't have any current interactions or continuous things to get this pardon the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that's hard for people because they're still affected by this, system that continuously targets them for being a patient.
So they can't be on any supervision. They can't have any cases pending. They can't have any police interaction or court cases open in trying to get this pardon. Okay.
Correct. Which makes it a lot of times hard for people because of
Right.
their circumstances and what's going on. But the program is a free program. It doesn't cost you anything. And like I said, once it's entered, as long as the information is filled out correctly, they're not dismissing it. They're just putting you on a list of
Right.
this is the way we're doing this, which
Right.
is
Kind of categorizing, separating the chaff from the wheat, so to speak, to fast track some folks, or you have to do some things to be able to get into this next list or group of people that are up for the pardon.
right.
And see, and I mean, while we're grateful, it's par for the course, as far as the criminal legal system, is that nothing is easy. You have to have this stellar record to get into, drug court or behavior court. They literally give you one chance. It's so rigid and so strict that it's really not designed to help people. It's a lot of, talk about let's make this available to people. But ultimately, like you said, it ends up becoming a really small number that, has it, done quicker versus other folks because they have this other gauntlet of hurdles to get through. So it's just, we can talk and talk and talk. So we're going to switch things around because I do want to close with the Black Cannabis Week that's coming up. But I also want to ask, because you gave me my what the fuck moment when you were telling your story about how they pulled you over and traumatized you and criminalized you and stole your blood and kidnapped you and all these things. So is there anything after that? Like I said, it doesn't have to be, a negative, but is there a what the fuck moment that you'd like to share?
Yeah, this experience is just continuous, and until some form of legalization, we're all enemies of the state. I'm not liked, and
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry, that I'm just trying to, help people out and to do the Lord's work, I'm not, so I'm a criminal of the state, and I, be kidnapped and, crucified is just what they do to try and to divert you from your mission and what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And so Black Cannabis Week is the end of September. So I was trying to follow. So some of the dates are virtual or they're in other cities, but in Philadelphia on Friday, September the 27th is the film festival. There's actually a policy breakfast in the morning with Senator Street. And then it's the film festival. So that's from 9 to 11:30. The film festival is from 12 to 4:30. That's a free event. And then they're having a fun event, which is the, what is it called? Blazing the Runway. And so that's a fashion show, cannabis infused fashion show, which I think is really dope, to highlight people of color in the cannabis industry. And then the next day on Saturday is like a full day of like workshops and vendors and things like that. Are you participating in Black Cannabis Week?
I think if they have a policy day, I will attend that. But
yeah, Friday morning is the policy breakfast, so that will be that. And so yeah, I'm excited to be a part of it. It was on my radar. Crystal gave me a call to say, hey, we really want you all to be there, and absolutely we want to make sure that however our organizations intersect, how our life stories intersect, how we can support and just lend agency and amplify each other's stories on how to get this legislation passed to interrupt the harm that's being done to people that are consumers of cannabis. And really, it's again the criminal legal system with the process of everything that you went through the court process. You had the situation with the police officers, and then you had the situation with the court process. So they were like, they go hand in hand, but they were two very distinct, opportunities for people to kind of get it right. And they continue to just, criminalize people, villainize people, oppress, and just are so violent through that process where people just get dismissed. It's just like, we are just pawns in this game. And the more which I think now, is that the more that we know as individuals, as citizens about that process, the more we can interrupt it. We can advocate for or against certain practices. We know what's supposed to be happening during the process, so they can't, just slide things in. And you do a lot, you know what I mean? And that pisses them off too. It pisses them off that your rights. It pisses them off that you stand up for yourself. It pisses them off that you call out their illegal, unethical behavior. Like, so we are all enemies of the state because we are demanding that these practices change and be conducted in accordance with the law. You know what I mean? That, to pull your medical records without your consent is a violation. It's illegal to do that. And they just brush it aside. And I think, I'm not going to speak on the suicide, but it's unfortunate that, one would take a different route than stand up and be accountable for their actions, because they're demanding that of us, right? They were demanding that of you and of an action that you didn't commit. And so it's like, when we're demanding accountability for people in these roles where they have taken oaths and they have sworn on the Bible and their studies and their degrees and all of those things, demand that they remain ethical, impartial, and all of these other adjectives that describe this just system to make us trust that they're going to do that. When that violation happens in such a gross manner, it's really a shame that people aren't held accountable, and we see it, hear it every day, that these types of practices just get dismissed, and it causes the breakdown of our communities. It causes the breakdown of the trust with our elected officials or law enforcement or court system. Like, those types of dismissals just undermine, democracy and community, and just, trying to get justice in a fair deal when we're dealing with the criminal legal system. So I thank you. We've talked a lot. We didn't get a chance to say hey to anybody on watching, but I'm asking everybody to please check out MontcoNORML at Geoff's website. All that stuff is on in the links and in our comments. Please like, share, and follow us on YouTube or Purely Speculation, our Facebook page as well. But also too, Geoff, and this is one thing that one of the things, in addition to cannabis being a medicine and maybe part of the self-care, is that we had an episode. Our guest from August, Jay Vasquez, is a phenomenal person who was really focused on being rooted and grounded in the healing process and just self-care. So through all that, in with the use of cannabis, please take care, utilize all the self-care remedies that we have at our disposal so that we can stay healthy and stay in this fight. Geoff, I thank you for joining us. I thank you for being a guest. We look forward to, getting more updates on what's happening legislatively and when we can celebrate the legalization of recreational cannabis and all of the retroactive and proactive amenities or amendments that are going to go into those bills so that our folks can be free and healthy and be able to utilize their medicine as they see fit.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Don't go nowhere. We're going to wrap it up. So stay tuned. Next 2 weeks, we'll have our Court Watch edition. And y'all be safe. Debate is on tonight. I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed. But, if y'all are up watching it, that should be telling of a lot of things to come. So y'all be safe. Peace out.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Purely Speculation. If you learned something, share something. Please like, follow, and share this show. The more our communities know, the more they are empowered, and the faster we can create change. Purely Speculation would not be made possible without the generous support of the Community Justice Exchange, the Health Sparks Frank E. Boston Black Justice Fund, Philadelphia Foundation, and Reform Alliance. Thank you. Booyah!
Intuition different, already lived and dreamt it. Visions make my vision clear as I'm jogging through this fog of life. I be fog light with the fog set, body and I'm all set. Baby, can you be my Cardi B on and offset?